Welcome to the Ferris Love Podcast, Single, Not Stalled, Pursuing Sanctity in Your Singleness. This podcast is for Catholic women who find themselves living the single life, whether it's by choice, vocation, or circumstance. Here we believe that this time is not just a waiting period, but a season rich with purpose, growth, and grace. Join your hosts, Monica and Katie Hinderer, two sisters navigating the single life from different perspectives as we dive into conversations about faith, friendship, professional growth, and finding joy in the everyday. Let's embrace this extraordinary journey together. Okay, today, this is Katie, and today we have a special episode because I have ditched Monica and I have a guest on today. Welcome, Laura.
Oh, hello. I'm so happy to be here. It's so exciting.
We're excited to have you. And we're going to talk about M Code. And if you haven't heard of this, get ready. You know how much Monica and I love personality tests, and we talk about these in other episodes. But this is more than just a personality test. So we're going to get into it. Laura, why don't you start off and just tell us a little bit about you, and then we'll talk about the M Code.
Sure. So my name is Laura Rowland, and I am currently a motivation expert. So I help people understand what motivates them, how they're wired for both work, how to live out your personal vocation with a sense of fulfillment and joy. I'm a former Catholic educator by trade, hung up my whiteboard markers officially in late of 2018, and have kind of been on a journey since then to figure out how to really help people really discover those really important truths about themselves. So my journey to become an M Code certified coach and do the work that I do now is based on my own experience with the assessment and living all of that out. And I wanted to bring that out to the world. So that's how I'm here.
I love it.
Yeah.
So tell us M Code, motivation code.
Yeah.
Tell us what it is.
Okay. So the motivation code, M Code for short, it is a science-backed, research-based assessment where we look at what really prompts you to get involved in things in the first place. Right. So we talk about our deeper why. So there's things about ourselves that are like skills. There's preferences that we have. Some of us are introverts. Some of us are extroverts. Some of us, we all have charisms, all that kind of stuff. M Code actually gets at the why you do the things that you do. Right. The things that you can do all day, every day that light you up, the things that drain you and really cost you a tremendous amount of energy. You still have to do them, whether it's at work or at home, in your personal life, your volunteer world, whatever that looks like. We all have things that we have to do. And so this helps you understand why you are the way that you are, and then what to do with that information moving forward. How do you I call it, how do you harness that information for good? Once you have that insight and clarity, how do you use it? And then really helping people kind of figure out their lane, figure out how to stay in their lane and what that looks like for them, living that out moving forward.
Love it. And how does this differ from a personality test, like a Myers-Briggs or a six personalities or whatever?
Sure. No, that's a great question. And I get that all the time. I have lots of colleagues who are coaches that use all sorts of great assessments that are out there to get at different things. And there's some of us, looking at myself, first of all, like I took every little quiz in the magazines back in the day, like, what kind of jean wearer will you be? Or like, what kind of mom will you be? Like, I wanted to know them all. I was like, I got to know all these things about myself. Like if I could just figure myself out. And there's lots of really good and holy information available that we can learn. The difference with this one is that this one is not based on a preference. It's not based on personality. This is really where we take your stories of times in your life where you experienced a deep sense of fulfillment or satisfaction, maybe even achievement. Some people like that word. And then you tell us what it was that prompted you to do this in the first place. So it is narrative based. It's the only narrative based assessment out there. And again, it's backed by 60 plus years of research. It was actually founded to help people understand how to live out their personal vocation, why they do what they do, why they choose what they do, and when they choose to do it.
Sure.
And so things like a Myers-Briggs you're going to get a binary set of choices, right? Or, some of them are like, and this isn't Myers-Briggs, but I'm kind of broad brush stroking here, but it's Friday night and you've worked a hard week. What are you more likely to do? Like sit on your couch and eat a bowl of ice cream, or are you going to go put your dancing shoes on? Well, I'm not going to do either of those. So in my mind, I'm already out thinking the assessment. Like,
Mm-hmm.
well, what's the middle? Like, which one is going to be more me? You can't do that with your own personal experiences. You actually answer questions that get at these different nuances of how you actually experienced that story. So it's your story, it's your experience with the story. And it's absolute. When you start to see them, we can see these patterns of motivation show up from the very first time that we can remember, like doing something, we felt this really fun sense of achievement. And so we could, even if we didn't have the assessment, we could go back to find those patterns. This gets at those patterns. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And you write down 4 stories, or is it 3?
It's 4 stories.
4.
It used to be 3.
4.
Now they do 4.
Okay.
And they can be from any time in your life, any part of your life. So it could be work, it could be, your home life, it could be if you volunteer somewhere, like maybe there was something there. And it can be, again, from, when you were a little kid up until something you did yesterday. So, yeah. So it's beautiful.
You do these, you write them all out, and then you answer a series of questions specifically about
that story.
And the questions, they're not all the same for all 4 stories, right?
Correct.
They're slightly different.
They're slightly different. Yeah. So the questions are nuanced to really get at the distinctions between the motivational abilities. There's not one size fits all. And the thing that I actually love about MCODE is that, even if you and I had very similar top 5, let's say, right? The way we experience those top 5 in our own life and in our own stories is vastly different. The statistic that we use is that there's the chances of 2 people having the same MCODE is 1 in 27 million people. And then when you talk about, well, how do you experience evoke recognition versus, how does a friend experience it? It's completely different. It's fascinating work. It's very nuanced, which is why the questions sort of get at that based on how you've written the story.
Yeah, it's true. I really liked taking the actual test itself, the assessment itself, because I think having to think up 4 stories was actually more challenging than I thought. And actually, Monica just took it too, and she said it was really hard for her to come up with 4 stories that she wanted to share.
Yeah.
Because she's also at a transition moment in her life. But I think it's weird because it made me think more than some of these other personality tests do, but without overthinking. Which I think some of the personality tests, like you were saying, makes you overthink. You're like, well, I don't want to do either of these. So which one would I be more likely to do if it was the prime Friday night or whatever, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think we're so conditioned to, I want this to be what I want it to be. I don't want a bad result.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing with the motivation code is that there's no bad motivators. I mean, there's nothing negative about them. Even the parts that are in the motivations that fall in our lowest 5, I call those our burnout zone or our disengagement zone. They're not bad. We actually come at the world from these places of low motivation, but we need to understand how that fits with us and what that looks like for us, because we experience those quite differently. Yeah.
So you take the test, you get the results, they come out, and you get your top 5, you can see your bottom 5. Well, you can see all in order, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of
yep.
How many people are there? 30,
there are
32
identified motivational abilities. Yeah. Yeah.
So you see all of that.
Do.
And then what happens? Then how do you use that?
Well,
what do you do?
Yeah. So if you don't know that there are people like me who do this work that help you really gain insight from this report, the report itself is it's 32 pages if you were to print it out. You get a dashboard that you can go and kind of play around on with. The thing that I love most about MCODE, I found the most helpful, most of my clients find, is that it gives you language to use about yourself. We probably know a lot of these things. We just didn't have a way to categorize it and to name and claim it, as I like to say. So it will give you a lot of language. So even if you and I never had a conversation, Katie, there's things in there that you're like, oh, I see that now. That makes perfect sense. And now that I have that language, I can explain that either to myself or to other people. So even if you don't work with a coach or you don't get further insight into it, it is useful information to give you. Working with someone like myself, what I do is I take that information and I give you even more language to use around it. We really dive into what this looks like showing up in your life. And then we use that information to help you with whatever your pain point is. I deal with everything from people feeling super stuck. A lot of people come to me because they're bored. And they don't give themselves permission to say, I'm bored. But it's actually boredom. They're very, very bored. And they're like, yeah, but this was my dream job. Okay. but you're bored. So let's figure out what we do about that. Let's give you some information, and then you get to make a better decision about how you're going to work best to get unstuck or to move forward or to make peace with where you are, and what does that look like. So we use that insight from the assessment and then the conversations that I have with people to really help you kind of figure out what's going on. It's sort of what's underneath the surface there, and really help you give yourself that permission.
Sure. I love it. Can you walk us through some of the like common motivators so people get an idea of what exactly we're talking about when
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if there are common ones since
Yeah.
there are 32, so
Well,
maybe there are.
it's funny. I was thinking about that because I get this question a lot. And there's 32 identified motivational abilities. And the way that they show up for you is what we call your M code, right? I tend to work, people who find me are a lot of times people who want to know a lot of things about themselves. So I call y'all, and I'm putting you in this category. I haven't met Monica yet, but I have a feeling she's probably in the same category.
Totally the same.
My high achievers who are really high achieving.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, I think that might be a good. I just made that up. Feel free to use it. But anyway, so a lot of people come to me with things like overcome, people who are highly motivated to meet the challenge, people highly motivated to realize the vision. I work with a lot of creative people and just that real visionary. My work with Catholic educators, a lot of it is experience the ideal, make an impact. Oddly enough, it's not things like meet the needs of people, which is kind of funny. It's meet needs is one of them. I will tell you one that's pretty low on the list that I don't get a lot of is people highly motivated to architect. Not to be an architect, but to architect, which is sort of like get in and build the scaffolding of things. Like they get in and sort of like establish baselines. I don't get a lot of those folks. I get a lot more of the visionary people. So it's just fascinating how all that plays out. The other one that's kind of popular is finish. So people highly motivated to finish are usually pretty go-getters and want to know, like, why can't I finish anything? This feels frustrating.
This is funny. The random ones you mentioned, I have 3 of those, so that's definitely.
There you go.
It's true, because probably like the types of people who are really motivated to take a test like this probably are a certain type, right? Whereas
I think there are people, I think people are searching. I think that's the word I would use, Katie. They're really searching. They want to understand themselves. A lot of us are really trying to live out our mission, what we feel our purpose is. Maybe we're not really clear what the purpose is, but what that kind of looks like. So there's a lot of curiosity about, like, how am I really reflecting Christ to others? How am I really living out everything that God has intended for me, and what does that look like in this season? So there's a lot of that searching that's happening, that need for clarity.
It's interesting. We have kind of a mutual acquaintance who does this for like youth ministers and campus ministers, and I wonder if their top 5 are different because they're a very like niche thing, although they're also very driven and that kind of thing. But I wonder if it also depends on kind of like what you niched into when you started teaching.
I think it's more about the niche. The more I do this work, you can't really pigeonhole people. My newsletter is actually called You Unboxed because it doesn't actually put you in a box. It actually frees you up from being labeled or in a category. So we can see patterns, but then it's so unique to people. It's fascinating work. It really is.
So one of the things that I'm like intrigued by with all of this is this idea of motivation versus like discipline or willpower. And I've read a ton of books on like willpower and discipline. Willpower Doesn't Work is one of my favorite books I always recommend to people. But I'm curious, like why does motivation matter, or why does it play a larger role in things for us than necessarily like powering through or just like setting up a system that you just like doggedly follow?
Yeah. So that's a great question. We get this a lot. So what we need to understand is that motivation, when we get to this level of it, it's not about the outcome of things. Like, it's not a carrot and a stick. This is really what prompts you to take an action in the first place. It is your default. It is your, like, this is my face, like, default. You know what I mean? Like this is what I'm going to do time and time and time again. And so if it's something that we are not really wired to do and or we're just not interested in doing it, which we also can have a lack of interest, right? And for whatever reason, we can hustle all we want. We can tell ourselves all the right things that we need to do and say.
Yep.
And unless we can neutralize those tasks and learn to tie them to one of our top motivators, what will prompt us to get involved in the first place, and then learn to work in shorter spurts around those kinds of things, we can fool ourselves. We can power through, but that's a coping mechanism. That's not a strategy. A strategy is something that's going to help you over time. A coping mechanism is just, I'm just delaying dealing with the feeling associated with this. That's a little bit of the procrastination stuff that I deal with, the productivity stuff that I deal with. So, I think about myself. I'm a solopreneur, right? So I'm it. I'm it. And so one of the things that I am very low, one of my burnout motivators is systematize. I'm not a linear thinker. If I could think linearly, my life would be good. Like I feel like everything would fall into place, right? But I'm not. And so for me to systematize in a way that other people do, it just doesn't make sense to me. So if somebody's like, I need this and then I need this, and I'm not going to follow it. And so trying to do that is really living someone else's idea of how my work should look.
Yeah.
And I can do it, but after a while, the resentment builds, the disengagement happens, and the burnout happens. So it's not a question of willpower. I mean, I can get mad about it and I can do the work, but it's not bringing me fulfillment and joy.
Right.
So if you can kind of follow that train there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I was thinking of this just yesterday, in fact, because like I'm in this very interesting phase in my business right now where I'm like hustling to try, and like make certain things work and whatever. And one of my lowest motivators, my burnout zone, as you talk about it, is to make it work.
Make it work.
Just make it work. But like I'm at a stage right now where like I have to do that for
Right.
the business because otherwise the business is not going to work.
Right.
Right. And it is really interesting because I find it so exhausting. Yesterday. I didn't even have that crazy of a day. I worked out in the morning like I always do. I did my thing, and my watch at 7:00 was like, "It's been a very stressful day for you. Consider going to bed early." And I was like, what? But it has, because I've sat in that zone of make it work because I have to right now.
Because you have
But
to.
I know long term that would burn me out. Like I would not be able to sustain that for very long.
Yeah. So people who are motivated to make it work, I don't know if I think you and I had this conversation, right? So make it work people, like if I were to give them, a pen and lip balm and I'm like, build a bridge, they're like, I got it. Like, this is great. Like, I can do this. I'll make it work with whatever I have. People who are not, you're like, wait, seriously? Like, this is it? Like, I need more. Like, where's all the things? And it's a funny way to sort of explain it. But when we have to come at the world from our places of low motivation, I think, we're functioning adults. We have big girl jobs that we're doing all the things, right? We have to suck it up and do it. What we have to do is, when we understand this about ourselves, is that we have to learn how to work smarter with it rather than like push through and power through. Right. And there's a lot of things that we do in terms of, it's mindset work, yes, but it's also like really strategic things. Like, let's neutralize these tasks. Let's move them to a place of higher motivation for you. Let's tie it to a bigger purpose. You're very purpose driven, Katie. You're very much like, I want to finish this. I don't want the tedious, like constant refinement. I want it done and I'm moved on to the next thing. Right. And so that's what we would do, is we would look at some of those tasks and we would say, okay. And then I always tell people to use the Pomodoro method. It's 25 minutes on, take a break. Because if you're powering through, you're going to burn out so fast. So it's about how you're expending that energy. I hope you went to bed last night because your watch said to go to bed.
I went to bed. I went and read a little bit and then I went to bed.
Well done.
I know, right? It's not my normal, but I'm trying.
I'm very proud of you.
I know. Thanks. So one of the things I think, like a lot of our listeners who are like usually, for the most part, young professional women, right? Married, so they don't have the toll that a family takes, but
Mhm.
they are, I think because of that, they often are very involved in their work, right? In their
Mhm.
careers and in their professions. And very many of them, I think, are burnt out. And so
Mhm.
with the people that you're working with and things like that, do you find burnout ends up being more a motivational problem than like a workload problem? Like they have too much on their plate, or they just aren't, they don't have enough on their plate that is actually motivating for them?
It can be both and,
Yeah.
to be really honest, and not to hedge the question there, but it really can be both and. So sometimes sometimes we overload ourselves depending on our motivations. People who are highly motivated to meet needs, like myself, that's my number one, highly motivated to be key. Like we just take on more and more. We absorb it because we're capable, and it doesn't bother us until it bothers us. And then we're like, peace out, like I'm done, like I'm fried, right? But it sneaks up on us, right? There's a whole mindset that kind of goes with that. The other part is that if we are bored because we don't have enough to do, we start to look to fill those gaps. We start to look at taking on other things. So we get involved in, we say yes to too many things
Hmm.
because we're bored. And it may be like our work life is boring to us. And so we're like, well, all right, that's a means to an end. So I'm going to go all in, at my parish soup
Hmm.
kitchen. And now you're running the thing and cooking,
Yeah, yeah, and a
like,
full-time job
and a full
and
time
whatever
job.
else, right?
Right.
Like,
And
yeah.
suddenly you're like, none of this is bringing me joy.
Mhm.
None of this is bringing me joy. And at the end of the day, Katie, that's what this is all about. It's how we find joy in the work. It's how we find joy and fulfillment in how we're spending our time. The Lord does not want us to be miserable. Of this I
Right.
am certain. So
Exactly.
it's all about understanding how to get back in alignment. I call it alignment. I don't call it balance because there's no
Okay.
such thing as
Yeah, yeah.
balance. So yeah.
Alignment makes sense.
Yeah.
What would be some red flags for women to realize they are out of alignment, right?
Yeah.
With their motivators, with what they're doing?
Sure. So things that once brought you a sense of peace or you felt like you did really well, you start to self-doubt, you start to think like, oh, I used to be really good at this and now I'm not. Things that you used to find really interesting and intriguing, suddenly there's no excitement to them anymore. That's
Mhm.
usually a sign of boredom.
Sure.
Those are all red flags. Really, I call it like, just moving the food around the plate or rearranging the deck chairs.
Yes.
You're writing a list to
I
just
do that.
write a list
Yeah.
to make a list for later. You've got 10 lists all over
Uh-huh.
your room, whatever that looks like for you. All of those are signs that something is really out of alignment. What you're looking for, what you feel called to do is no longer part of the equation. And you're not sure how it slipped away, whether it's something else took over. You've shifted in a season. I mean, there's a million, as many people as there are, there's that many reasons for why things
Sure.
happen. But those are some of the red flags. I think honestly, when you start to disengage and you just sort of start dialing it in,
Mm.
that's your sign like, I am really out of alignment with what the purpose and plan is for this work. And I need to figure out how to get back into alignment. And sometimes that's not a conversation we want to have because sometimes it means we have to have a lot of courage and
Yeah,
move on
yeah.
and move on.
Mhm.
And that's a hard, hard thing to face.
Yeah.
It doesn't always mean that. Sometimes it's just I got to get myself, I need to readjust and I need to figure out some things. So,
Mhm.
yeah, but those are the biggest red flags that I see.
Yeah, that makes a lot of
Yeah.
sense to me. Even, like, I'm thinking back to my teaching years,
Oh, I
I
yeah, I forgot we had that in common. So,
I know,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
But, like, it's true, like, by year 3, I was like, I could tell, I knew it wasn't for me, and yet I was like, "But," and people were like, "You're so good at it, like, it is for you." And I think that for me was really hard to grapple with, this idea of, like, I was good at something
Yeah.
that I actually didn't
Yeah.
love,
Yeah.
and but then, like, now looking at my, like, top motivators, I'm like, "Oh, well, no duh."
Yeah.
Like, it was really exciting the first year because I was, like, meeting the challenge, and I was realizing this vision of what I wanted to turn it into and all this kind of stuff, and then I created the capstone project, for instance, and it was established, and now I'm like,
All the
"Oh."
things. And you did so you peaked in your first year.
Exactly, like, literally. I
Literally.
was like, "My first year was amazing, and my second year was horrible," and everyone's
Hor
like, "Usually teaching's the other way
Yeah,
around. Your
no.
first year's horrible, and your second's amazing," and I was like, "Yeah,
No.
didn't love it."
So here's just something to think about with that, right?
Yeah.
Especially if you are in a mission-driven organization
Mhm.
and you're feeling this disengagement, there's some red flags. Our mutual friend deals with this
Yeah.
and with the parish ministry stuff is and so my own story with Catholic education kind of fell into this is we're all on board with the mission. So why don't we love the work that gets us to the mission? And so there's a little bit of a disconnect between, well, I love the mission, so therefore I should love all the work that goes with it, or at least a significant portion of it. And when we see our coworkers all loving the work and we're going, I'm about ready to yeah, like I can't do this anymore. So what do we say? There must be something wrong with me.
Right.
And that totally shuts out Psalm 139. It goes against everything that we believe. There's a plan and a purpose. You were created for that, right? And so I felt a lot of guilt and shame around the fact that I didn't love the work. I
Mhm.
could do the work,
Yeah.
right? So skill and being motivated to use those skills are completely different. So it's good that you know your strengths finders. It's good that you know that information, what you're good at doing, but it doesn't mean that you love doing it. And there's a difference there. And so there's a lot of guilt and shame that comes up when we have these conversations, especially for mission-driven work. And you have to be able to really separate out the two things, right? You can love the mission and not like the work that gets you there. Two things can be true at the same time. And so but you have to understand those things about yourself first. And when I fully understood that, and it wasn't until after I had left the classroom, actually after I had left Catholic education altogether, I had a coaching session with somebody and really dug deep into some of this.
Mhm.
And it was only then that I realized, and I actually said the words out loud. I was like, you mean there's nothing wrong with me?
What?
And
Yeah.
it was Dr. Miller, this is
Yeah.
his work. He looked at
Great.
me and he's like, no, there's nothing wrong with you. The work was not a good fit for you. It's not that you weren't a good fit for the work. The work was not a good fit for you. And honestly, Katie, that just gave me so much permission to
Mhm.
say, I'm good.
Mhm.
I'm actually good. Like, this is good. And when we can say that about ourselves, we start to reclaim that there is a plan, there is a purpose. Let me get really curious about what this looks like now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is really interesting. It's made me think a lot. Like, it's true. It's really freeing to know that there are just some positions that just aren't a good fit for you and who you are.
Yeah.
And like, but they are probably a really good fit for someone else. I
Yeah.
often look at other people's jobs and be like, how can they do that all day? Like, when I was going to the CrossFit gym, I thought that about the CrossFit instructor, and he was such a good instructor, but I was like, I would go mad if 8 times a day I had to teach the same class. And then tomorrow I have to come back and teach a slightly different class 8 more times. I was like, and he loved it. He
He
loved
loved
it.
it.
And it's
Loved
like,
it.
okay, well, clearly, like, different
Yeah.
motivators. There's different,
Yeah.
paths for each of us,
Yeah.
and that's
So
really free.
we talked a little bit about the red flags. So let's talk
Yeah.
about the green
Yeah,
flags.
let's do it.
Green flags are like you get in and you're like, I could do this all day, every day.
Mhm.
Right. And of course, that's being hyperbolic, but we really get a lot of energy from it. We're not drained by it. I mean, too much of a good thing. I call that overfunctioning. That's a whole different conversation for another day. Let's just stick with the green flag, not the yellow one. But it's this idea of I feel the most myself when I am doing X, Y, and Z. Like I'll get off of a coaching call and I'll get, my husband is retired. And so he's often here, downstairs doing his thing. And I'll get off the call and he's like, you're glowing. You must have had a really good coaching call. I'm like, I love it. Like I feel like this was exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. And when we can say that and have it be a humble brag,
Mhm.
like
It's great.
it's like, thank you, God. Like this is who you've created me for to be. I finally get that. So that's your green flag. Like when you feel really good about all those things that you're doing. So your CrossFit guy probably looks at what you do and says,
Yeah.
that's
He was
not,
always like,
that's not enough structure for me. I need a little more systems and, I
yeah,
need a
yeah,
little
yeah,
more
yeah.
clarity about, the next thing and what that impact is going to be
Yeah,
without knowing
absolutely.
what is our,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's true.
yeah.
What about people who, maybe aren't in their dream job, but like they're in the job right now that they need to be in for, the place they are in their life or to pay their bills or whatever it is. How can they kind of align their work or what they're doing with their motivators so that they're not, you know, always burnt out or they're not just like every day's drudgery,
Yeah,
missing the Mondays?
I do. Yeah, I do work with people like this from time to time. So I start off by reminding them that work is only a part of your life. So if the job is the job and it's paying the bills and moving from that job to a different job is not an option, right? I'm speaking on a panel discussion in a couple of weeks, and it's about like going from two incomes to one income and what that looks like for couples, right? To do that so they can raise the family at home. Anyway, and the idea is that if you're stuck in this job and you're feeling stuck, right, is that one of the first things you can do is say the job is a means to an end. It is not my life. And it doesn't define who I am. So we have to kind of break away from that first off. That's one thing. If you can't do that or whatever, you're not able to make that leap. The other thing that we talk about is what else are you doing outside of work that is fulfilling? I had a client once who she realized the vision. She was highly motivated to learn new things, demonstrate learning. She was highly motivated to realize the vision, experience the ideal. She just was like all over the place with stuff, like very creative. And her job was, she coded, right? So she worked with binaries, zeros and ones all day, every day, very deadline driven, someone else's vision, someone else's ideal. And she's like, I'm exhausted, but it pays my bills and I don't know what else to do right now. And I said, well, what do you do in the rest of the time? And she's like, well, I like to paint and I said, there's your fulfillment. But, we're not called to be fulfilled 24/7, but if most of the time we can find pockets of that fulfillment where our motivators are being utilized, it kind of balances some things out for us, right? So what are those things outside of your payment that you get paid to do that really you can find a sense of fulfillment and joy? That kind of gives you that something to look forward to while you're, doing the thing. The last thing that I coach people on is let's look at how do we neutralize these tasks that really drag you down. We can flip the script on those a little bit. We can look at how do we work best? How do we work well, given how you're motivated? And a lot of that is at least bringing those tasks from like a low place of motivation. For me, for instance, Persuade is very low down, but I have to market myself. Sure. And so I have to dig really deep. I have to have a better plan. I have to have the language, and then I have to bring it back up to one of my top motivators, which is if I don't tell people about what I do, I'm not going to make the impact, and I'm all about making an impact. And so this is years of learning how to do this, but that's kind of what we do. That's the work that we do, giving you strategies rather than coping mechanisms. Strategies move you forward. Coping mechanisms just rearranging the deck chairs. Yeah.
Kind of shifting focus a little bit. I think one of the things that I see a lot, in myself and other young professionals and that kind of a thing is this idea of like, how come I have such a hard time staying consistent when I know what to do? Right? Like maybe I have my habit map put all together. Maybe I know clearly what I need to do to hit X goal or whatever. And yet not so much.
Yep. So I think two things happen. Well, there's a couple things. So first of all, we have learned, or we think that we've learned, that we work better under pressure.
Oh yeah, totally. People think that.
That is so, there are so few people for whom that is true. Right? So again, that's not a strategy. That's a coping mechanism. We have just delayed the feeling around this until now we have something to get excited about. We've created a challenge for ourselves where there wasn't a challenge before. Now we're playing beat the clock as opposed to let me just get this done. Right. So a lot of it comes from boredom, if I'm being honest. I mean, that's what I see a lot of. So now some things we literally have to wait until the last minute to get them done. Right. But that urgency that we're feeling is self-created. it's because we sort of get addicted to that adrenaline of, oh, and then we're like, oh, I got it done at the last minute. I'm really good at we actually wear that like a badge of honor. Like, I'm so good at getting things done at the last minute. When did that become, something to be like,
that and being busy,
live our life.
Badges of honor that we just
and
are so proud of.
And if it's true, and if that is how you're wired, and like I said, it's a small fraction of people who really do need that hard finish line, right? Right. But where we have to get really clear is my delaying the task because of a feeling. I'm bored. I don't want to deal with it. There's all sorts of things, like maybe I don't have enough information and I don't want to go back and ask for it. Maybe once it's off my plate, I don't have anything else to do. Right? That happens a lot to people. Maybe I'm going to fail at it, or maybe I'm going to knock it out of the park, and then I'm going to be held accountable to knock it out of the park the next time.
Yep.
So we fail forward, right? Or we get it in just under the skin of our teeth so that we're like, people are like, well, they did it, but it was almost a day late and $1 short. So maybe we shouldn't ask them to do it again.
Sure.
There's all sorts of reasons that go behind it. But I think the biggest thing is probably boredom. And then we create this sense of urgency because we think that's what we're supposed to do.
Yeah.
That's what I see.
I'm really intrigued by this idea of boredom because I don't think I've described myself as bored since my first job, in which I just didn't have enough to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I was bored.
Yeah.
Like, I was so classically bored. I read the entire Count of Monte Cristo online, waiting for someone
You fascinate me
to do. Because I was just like, I was like, I got to be doing something. So
right. We got to be doing something while we're doing nothing.
The Count of Monte Cristo.
That's hilarious.
But the more that we're talking about it, I'm like, oh, I can totally see now, things that I do that I wouldn't classify as bored because I have stuff to do, but I'm probably bored.
I'm going to use another word.
Yeah.
We find it tedious.
Yeah, exactly.
It's tedious. It's minutia. It's like so little. It's like, do we even see this as consequential? Like, is this really gonna matter if the font size is 32 or 31? Or the color, you don't deal with this at all, I'm sure, in your work, right? So it's the tedious, it's the minutia sometimes. I worked with a stay-at-home mom. She had 5 bathrooms in her house, and it was their dream house. And she's like, why can't I get my act together and clean those bathrooms? I wanted them. I have them. I love them. We've decorated them, all this kind of stuff. And I said, well, tell me what part of scrubbing the sink really lights you up? And she's like,
right?
None of it. I said, is it boring? Yes. Is it tedious? Yes. I just want to get in there and wipe it down and be done. I said, so wipe it down and be done.
Right.
It was mind blowing. She hadn't thought of it. I said, don't make it so tedious.
Yeah.
You go in, you wipe it down, you hit the hot spots, you put out a clean hand towel because you like the decoration part, and call it a day.
Yeah.
I still work with her. Every once in a while, she's like, yeah, I got to go clean my bathroom. I said, well, I'll see you in 3 minutes. Let's let's go. So we can have some fun with it. But, there's something called the frustration gap. And I didn't create this. It's just part of what I do with people. And it's that idea of, we think it's supposed to be one thing over here, but we're here trying to show it on camera here.
Yeah.
And whatever's in the way, we just say it's so frustrating, right? But if we can't do anything about frustration, but if we can name what the frustration is, often it's a lack of something is in our way, right? So it's a lack of challenge. It's a lack of interest. It's a lack of communication. Maybe it's a lack of knowledge, right? There's a knowledge gap that's in there. Once we can name what that gap is, what's in that frustration thing, that we can do something about. But if it's all just lumped in as I'm just so frustrated, I'm just so bored, let's name it. What part of this is boring? I don't care what the font size is.
Yeah.
But my client does. And so, okay, so now we've got to put that back up to, for you, Katie, what I would say is, well, you're not going to finish this project until you get that clarified. And you're like, I'm all about finishing. Let me go. Let's go. Let's get on this.
That's funny.
Do you see what I mean? That's what I mean when we
Yeah.
tie it to a top motivator. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
making me think like I have this one task every month that I have to do for one of our clients. And every month I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I have to do this thing." And like in my head, it feels like it takes forever.
Hmm?
Forever. And a couple months ago I was like, "I'm going to time it." Because I feel like it just takes my whole day.
Mm-hmm.
Mentally, emotionally, physically, like the whole day.
Yeah.
And it took me an hour and 15 minutes.
Right. But that emotional weight, gearing
Exactly.
up for it, you
Yes.
equate that. See, that's when we talk about procrastination, that's what you're delaying is that emotional weight that that carries.
Mhm.
But when we can see it for what it is and we can just name it and claim it, then we can do something about it. We get to decide I'm going to break it down into 25-minute sessions. I don't deal with it until Thursday, the last Thursday of the month. It's got a container. I don't need to think about it until then.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it's
that's what I
not
started
like,
doing.
yeah,
I
it's
just
not
put
like
it
weighing
in
on you.
a really specific time in my calendar, and then I'm like, "Okay, here it is.
See?
This is what I do."
See?
And I don't have it constantly in the back of my head being like, "I gotta do that. I gotta do that thing. I
Mm-hmm.
gotta do that thing," which is how I had it before. It was just
Right.
like floating there waiting for me to do something with.
Right. And that's what you just did was you neutralized the task. Tasks are
Right.
neutral. A task is
Yeah.
just a task. It's all of the emotional weight that we attach to it. That's what weighs us down. That's what burns us out. So well done. Gold star.
Learning. Okay, let's shift a little bit and let's talk spiritual life. Like how
Yeah.
can we use these motivators or how do these motivators show up in our spiritual life?
So our spiritual life, it's a great question. So going back to the purpose of understanding ourselves at this core level, right? It is how we are wired. And when we show up in the world as our best self, we are actually literally reflecting Christ to others. They see Christ in us, right? It's the plan and the purpose, Psalm 139. Right. All of it. It's like the whole thing comes together. Sorry. The whole thing comes together and we just know it and people sense it and see it in us. Right. And when that happens, we want more and more and more of that. Right. So when we're coming at the world from how we really were created, again, we want to go share it with everybody. We want to go do it with it. Like we want everybody to know all about this. When we get to our spiritual life, right, there's systems that we put in place for that. There are tasks. Again, let's talk about it in terms of tasks where we sort of attach like this I have to feeling to some of these things.
Yeah.
And if we're not in a place of where we really understand ourselves, we're not doing the things that are good for us anyway, let alone understanding how we can be we can really reflect Christ when we know ourselves well and we're doing those things. So they kind of go hand in hand with that. So if you are somebody who is, highly motivated to finish, right? And you have set this goal of, I am going to read, this book for 45 minutes every night, because that's what my spiritual director has said I should do, or you have said you should do. And you've only got 30 minutes actually in your day. Right off the bat, you're already like, well, I'm never going to be able to finish this. So kind of what's the point? Right. So when we can tap into how we're motivated, that helps us live out a spiritual plan for our life better. It kind of goes with like, are we willpowering our way through this? Are we going to the gym on a regular basis? Like whatever it is we have to do for ourselves, we have to do the same thing with our spiritual life. But overall, when we really understand how we're wired and we're living that out in real time, we truly are living out our path to holiness. We're living it out at work. We're living it out in our home life. We're living it out in our volunteer, in our community life that we're doing. And people sense it. I've seen it so many times. It's just people are like, wow, I want what you have. And it's just like, I'm just in my lane. I'm in my zone.
Yeah,
This is
doing my
me.
thing.
Yeah, I'm doing my thing. Let me tell you about it.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
right.
So, but the spiritual life itself can become more of those tasks. And so we have to think about like, well, how am I approaching these tasks? What's the point of this? And then you have to, so we look at it as, I hate to say like another to-do list, but our spiritual plan for the day kind of is a to-do list.
Yeah, I
And so
mean,
how do we, there are
gonna be
appointments,
fun.
right? Exactly. Right. So if you've got an hour of adoration, what does that look like? Why are you doing that? What's, let's tie, you kind of get the point. So
Sure.
yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. What about like how can people then use those motivators to maybe like stay consistent in prayer? That's one of the things
Mhm.
that we hear a lot from our, listeners is like, okay, I want to have like a mental prayer life. I want
Mhm.
to have a conversation with God frequently. And like I started and then it like, tapers off. Like, I mean, like so
Mhm.
many things in our lives, let's be honest.
Yeah. So the first thing that I would ask people is, well, how did you decide what kind of prayer life you wanted to have?
Mm,
Is
mhm,
it because so and so recommended this podcast and then somebody else recommended a book and then somebody else recommended you listen to, you do this prayer and then, oh, we have to do this prayer and now and suddenly you've got 27 prayers that feel like you have to, right? So you have to find your own lane,
mhm,
and that can only be discerned with the Lord. It really can. And honestly, less is better. Less is better. We can fall into that hustle culture again, even with something that's so supposed to be so pure. We can sort of make it very chaotic when we don't need to be. So less is kind of better. And I think when you understand how you're motivated, like what is it that you're looking for to get from your prayer life, right? You're like, so for me, my number one is meet needs. My
mhm.
number five is be unique.
Mm,
I know, shocking to those people that know me.
right. I
Shocking,
love it.
shocking, shocking. And so if everyone else is listening to a particular podcast or they're all doing a particular book or whatever, I'm like, yeah, no, I'm going to go over here. I'm not trying to be contrarian, but I just know I'm not going to go with the flow with everybody. So I have to find my own lane. And so that's what I often tell people. I don't advise people, I give my opinion. So my opinion is
Yeah, 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 yeah.
like, find your own lane. You're going to know what works for you. You're going to keep it simple. You're going to keep it, the more confusion, that's Satan, the more simple and the more consistent you can be with things,
Right.
that's of God, right?
Yeah.
That's following a path that's going to move you forward. The chaos just keeps you spinning over here. So find one thing that works for you. For
Mhm.
me, 3 years ago, the Lord was very clear with me during Lent 3 years ago. I was going to do this book study and I was going to do this and this and this.
Mm,
And he said, no, I have something better for you. I'm like, really?
oh,
Okay. Shocking. Could we please? Liturgy of the Hours, the morning prayers
yep.
every day. And I was to do 1 hour of adoration a week and I was to go to confession once a month. He said, that's it. And I
Mm.
said, yeah, but I want to go to a daily mass like 3 times a week. It's at 7 a.m. Now,
Are you gonna get up for that?
who knows me better than anybody? The Lord who created
Yeah.
me. I'm not a 7 a.m. riser unless I have to be.
Mhm.
And I think and so what happened was discouragement.
Mhm.
I'm a failure.
Right.
So then what happens? Well, then the next thing slid and the next thing started to slide. And I
Yeah.
just went back to the plan and I still do Liturgy of the Hours every morning.
Mhm. Yeah.
And that's been for 3 years. So that works for me.
Mhm.
We can fall so easily into comparison if we don't know
Yeah.
ourselves, right? When we don't understand ourselves, that comparison, that shiny object syndrome,
Mhm.
I mean, women deal with this all the
Yeah.
time.
All the time.
I'm broad brushstroking again here. Men that I work with typically have imposter syndrome more.
Mm. Mhm.
And I'm not saying women don't have that, right?
Yeah.
Because we do. But
Yeah.
men especially, there's an imposter syndrome that really happens.
Yeah.
Like, how can I show up to adoration when, I'm failing at work and I'm doing like it's all of
Mm.
those kinds of things. But for women, it's, yeah, but all these other women are doing this and this and this and this. And I want to be part of that
Right.
group and I want to belong.
Yeah, yeah,
Find your
yeah.
lane and keep it
Mhm.
simple.
Yeah.
That's my best opinion on that matter.
Yeah. I agree. I think it's so true. I think it's so important for us to find like what's going to work best for my relationship with God and
Mm-hmm.
not like necessarily what everyone else is doing, etc. Right? Because just like every relationship you have in your life is unique, even if you have a friend group, right? And like that
Yeah.
one friend, you have a unique relationship with her that and it's different than anybody else in that friend group. And so the same I think with our Lord is like we have to figure out, okay, what does that look like for me and how do I do that? And then
Yeah.
like kind of attack that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, let's start to wrap up this
Yeah.
conversation. We could talk forever,
I know
Laura,
we
but
could.
we will not. We will not.
Sad.
I know, I know. Okay, if someone is listening and they want to start understanding themselves better today, where should they begin? What should
Yeah.
they do?
So really, get curious about this idea of what would my fulfillment stories look like? What are they? Like you said, you had trouble finding 4, but then once we start thinking about it, we have to give ourselves permission to acknowledge that we've done some really interesting things or good things or things that meant something to us. They don't have to be by any of the world's standards. It's your own experience, right? So just get curious about that. And then you can start to see patterns of things pretty quickly. Even if you don't have the M code language, you can start to say, oh yeah, like I jump in to help people. I love to help people. I wonder why that is. And that looks very different for, across the board, but just get curious about that and really start to think about those times, because that's your default. That's what you're going to go to time and time and time again in situations. So that would be the first thing. Obviously, if you want to take the motivation code assessment, you can contact me. We can figure out what that looks like. You also can purchase it yourself if you want to do that. I think everyone should take this because it does give you that information. It gives you a starting point to at least have that language to talk about yourself. But allow yourself to get curious and to really accept and lean into the really good things about yourself, because these are all very good and holy things about yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, that is one of the things that I like the most about it is like it's all positive. It's all like these are the
Yeah.
things that you're really good at. Here's your motivators. Like even the
Yeah.
things that are least motivating for you, it's a really positive thing to know that about yourself.
Yeah.
I think some other personality tests, you read them and you're like, well, this one sucks.
Yeah. Like I don't want to be
I don't want to be that person.
I don't want to do that
am.
thing.
Yeah.
I think the thing about the burnout zone, people actually like to learn more about their bottom 5 motivators than their top ones, because that is where the real work to make changes that really can have a good impact on you, get you unstuck, help you to figure out some things. That's where the real work happens. And so learning about those bottom 5 are just as important, if not more so. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought learning about my bottom 5 were really interesting because it also has just helped me think of my own business and like where I want to spend time, where I want to hand things off to other people who are probably better at that thing than I am.
Yeah.
But even knowing the top 5, like I have thought a lot about that and like knowing my top motivators when pitching other business.
Yes.
Right. Like using those words and that language, like, listen, I
Yeah.
am really good at X, Y,
Yes.
Z.
Yeah.
And I think, for people who are looking for jobs or, these kinds of things, like knowing these things could just help one up you in the interview process or in the
Absolutely.
networking
Yeah.
and that kind of a thing.
I often work with small business owners or solopreneurs, and we do something called Magnify Your Mission. And that's where we look at your top motivators. I had a gal who's an accountant. She's highly motivated to finish and to do it right. And she's like, well, of course people want an accountant who's going to finish on time and they're going to do it right. And she said, I'm using this in my sales pitch. And that's the point, right? And people learn that. And it's like, yes, I have language to explain this now. So, and the other thing that it's really good for is if you are hiring people and you have a job description, you write that job description for this person. You need to be motivated to do X, Y, and Z. That kind of language really is going to land you a better applicant pool than just if you're like, this is the skill, right? Because we're going beyond a skill level. We want people in it for the long haul.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Makes total sense.
Yep.
Okay, last question, and then we'll sign off. What's one like mindset shift a single woman could make today if they're like hearing this and maybe they don't know their motivators yet, but like they're curious and they're like I see some of these red flags in my life. Like what's one mindset shift they could make?
I think the mindset shift is number 1, allow yourself to get curious. Allow yourself to say, if I'm feeling stuck, if I'm feeling, a little lost, I don't have clarity. If you can really pinpoint what it is, right, that you're frustrated with, and let's call it a frustration or a gap, right? Once we can name that gap, then we can do something about it. So if it's, I'm frustrated at work because my boss doesn't communicate well, that's a communication gap. And we can start to manage that. You can start to sort of have a strategy to move forward with that. So without knowing your motivators, that's the best thing I think you could do to really get started on that. Of course, I'd love for them to come to me, but
I was going to say, tell us, where can listeners find you? How
yes,
can they work with you if they're interested?
Shameless plug. I am not motivated to evoke recognition or persuade, but when I have to, I can. So you can find me laurarolandcoaching.com. I work with individuals. I work with small businesses and their teams, solopreneurs, all the Catholic educators, Catholic leadership teams, all the way through. So if you're a stay-at-home mom, if you're a work-from-home person, if you are, whatever that is, you're in transition, whatever, this is really helpful in any kind of setting in there. So we start with taking the assessment and do an insight session. That's the best place to start, and then you'll know what to do from there. So, Katie, you're a delight.
Thanks, Laura.
Thank you. I know.
I really enjoyed this.
I feel like we could do it for more time, but we can't.
We could. We
No.
absolutely
And Monica, we'll meet one day.
Yeah. I'm going to force that to happen.
I would love that. I would love that.
I love it.
Oh, thanks, Katie. It was so nice to chat with you today.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. All right, my friend.
I appreciate it. All right, that's it this week on Single Not Stalled. We hope this episode gave you new insights and a renewed sense of purpose in your daily life. Wherever you are in your journey, remember that God is with you, and this season is filled with opportunities to grow, flourish, and make an impact. If you're loving the podcast, please take a moment to rate and review it. It helps more women like you find this community, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Until next time, keep living fully and walking boldly.